Hey, Dan here, making a real quick reaction video to the latest post here by Joe Blackburn, the director for Destiny 2. This is not a blind react. I just watched this before coming up here to record this, but I feel like this is good to document and to get some feelings out while they're still kind of like raw and open. First of all, this is good communication for Bungie, and I think a really good move on their part. Joe always seems very personable, at least in any of the conversations that I've seen him post just throughout the years. There was like I remember like some sort of, there's some story that he posted years ago about like meeting somebody in a cab that I thought was hilarious. And so I don't know. I feel like this is a good entry into communication from Bungie's part. We'll just get into the video here.
And I'm just here to check in on how Destiny's going. So a few weeks ago, we put about a state of the game communication that wasn't up to our standards for what y'all have come to expect for those kinds of communications. It didn't provide the high-level vision that we normally provide, and really and truly, a bunch of us were heads down working the final shape and weren't able to give it the sort of care and love that we normally put into these kind of communications. And that's nobody's fault but mine here on this. So I wanted to come in, talk to y'all directly, and sort of give you an update on what we thought about the state of the game that we put out and what we think about Destiny as a whole. This is going to be pretty different than normal. This isn't a highly produced sort of production.
Good.
It's me in my office. It's not scripted. I've got a bunch of notes here that we're going to read through. And it's going to feel probably more like you're just in a meeting with me, which is going to be rambly, and we're probably going to mess up a few times. But really, I just want to go over where we're thinking about the game. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the reveal coming out next week. We're going to talk about PvP. We're going to talk about armor. We're going to talk about our communication strategy. Those are the big ones. So let's just get right.
All of those needed to be addressed. I'm glad that they're setting expectations for next week.
Into it. Let's start with reveal. Next week, we're going to go out and we're going to show an awesome showcase for the final shape. We're really excited about a bunch of the content in there, but and truly, that showcase is not a reaction to the state of the game last week. It's not a reaction to a bunch of the sentiment online, and it's definitely not a reaction to this video. It was recorded a while ago. I think I have a mustache in the video, and it's a pretty focused reveal.
I gotta say, he's got a pretty bitchin' mustache when he does have a mustache. I just have to say it. This will probably be a lot of like what it was last year when we got the Lightfall reveal. They're really good at producing stuff, that team over there. And then he talks a little bit about like what to expect afterward, which is something that like, I mean, like they had D Flawless last year, talking with the devs, which was an awesome move because D's great. I love D. And so I expected kind of nothing less than this.
In the same way that the game itself is pretty focused. The final shape is focused on the light. It's focused on the enemies we've been setting up and the allies that you've come to know. It's not about a bunch of wacky new systems or wacky new themes coming into Destiny. Instead, we want to make an experience that's super easy for anyone who's ever played Destiny to come in and absolutely fall in love with the content that's before them. I think the other thing that's really important here to know as I sort of look at my meeting notes is that communication is built for a pretty wide audience, much wider than probably whoever is watching this video. So what we're not going to talk about is things like a big new Strange Coin refactor and Xur revamp that's coming out.
Which is cool. I hope that that is something for veterans as well as new players.
In the final shape. We're not going to talk about things like a refactor of HUD elements where we're making sure the buffs and the debuffs are more clear and you can tell what's happening in higher level combat.
Which is super cool and something that we've been asking for years. The UI team is always really great at Bungie. And they've been making some huge strides lately to try to push accessibility as well as readability of the screen. So looking forward to seeing what they do with the cooldowns here.
It's going to, again, really be focused on the story, really be focused on the location, and maybe we'll get into a little bit about how the live service of Destiny is going to change after the final shape.
this portion right here, I think, is the most important portion. That little detail of like how the live service will change post final shape. That I think is sneaky. I want to see what they do post final shape. I'm still not completely convinced that they don't change out for another number on the box, but we'll just have to see. Eager to hear more about that change. Whether that then becomes like a monthly, either you are sold another seasonal bundle, or if it becomes a monthly charge so that they can fund more content for the game, or if they go back to huge expansions. We'll never truly know. I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, well, maybe free to play was a mistake. And maybe the seasonal model has shown some wear over the past few years. So eager to see what that changes.
Following that showcase, Dan, our GM, and I are going to be on set taking questions, dotting T's, crossing I's, or maybe the reverse of that, on what you've seen in the showcase.
I hope he's got a blank.
We'll provide a little bit more clarity on what was shown, and we'll probably get into some ways that maybe our philosophy on the final shape or specific details might have changed over the last few weeks since we recorded the showcase. All right, I think that's it for reveal. If I'm looking at the sheet next, we've got PvP. So let's start with the state of PvP right now in Destiny. What have we been doing? What have we been focused on? We've been really focused on sandbox balance. So like a big focus of effort last year was just making sure that Strand came out in a good place and got to live sort of in harmony with the rest of our Crucible ecosystem. Aside from that, we've been focusing on putting up 2 weapon balances per season, one at the start, one in the mid-season.
Very consistent with that. I'm not a huge PvP guy, so I can't speak to the state of the sandbox right now, but they are constantly pushing updates throughout the season.
And we've been focusing on ritual updates to PvP, be this mode updates, point updates, reward updates at the beginning of each season. Finally, we flip over to our agenda. We've been focused on making 1 new map and a few reprises a year. Now, all that aside, I think it's fair to say this approach is not producing the Crucible that our players expect us. So what are we going to do? How are we going to change? First, let's talk about maps. It's clear that the sort of slow trickle of PvP maps isn't having the effect we want. And although it gets an injection of PvP maps every so often into the ecosystem, it's also forcing this like 1 new map a year. It means we're trying to build a map that has to do everything, which means it can't be good at anything.
This is something that we kind of talked about in the episode of Destiny Digest where we did like the season 22 tier rankings, where we're getting a new map. It's the Vex map with hints and shades of Mars interspliced in. But we were speculating as to whether it would be good for just the specific modes that we have coming up, or if it would be a good all-arounder, because historically it's just been good for whatever mode has come out. If there's something that points away from my speculation that they'll put a number on the box, it's probably the next thing that he has to say about a map pack.
So next year, we're going to change our philosophy. Instead of a slow trickle of maps throughout the year, we're going to focus our effort into a single map pack that's free for everyone. So imagine new maps coming in 1 drop where we can make a bunch of new experiences that can all be good at specific things and adds a big variety in a single drop next year.
I think that's huge. Personally, I think that that's huge. That investment in making several maps to just push out, I wish that they would do, my hope is that they would just do that going forward. Like once a year, hey, here's a bunch of new maps coming in with whatever DLC.
So this is a shift from our strategy. So it's going to take us time to sort of understand the details of what we're putting out here and getting that out to y'all next year.
A part of me wonders if that was reactionary to the state of the game that was put out a couple weeks ago, or if they'd already had that in the works and they just didn't have that little note in time for that article.
Great, but we still really believe that PvP is about the foundation, and new maps aren't going to solve a foundation.
Right.
So modes. First of all, I'm really excited about what's coming out in season 22. First with Checkmate. Checkmate is a mode all about that sort of primary fire, basic weapon excellence of Bungie games and being able to show that excellence in a PvP setting. It's what a bunch of our like really marksman style PvP players have been asking for a long time since Destiny 1. And we're finally going to put a mode like that in the game. And I'm super excited for a bunch of those players to get that experience starting right away in Season 22. Next, we've got Relic. And so Relic is a different kind of mode. And it sort of is a building off of these experiments that we've been doing with things like Fortress or Eruption, where it's about this quality Destiny sandbox experience of your guns and your powers that escalates when you succeed in sort of a crazy mayhem-like experience.
Mayhem modes are really fun. I'm really excited about them. Another note, check out the episode where I talk with all the players, Scaro and Epic Dan, while we're on the floor of GCX. One of the things that ATP brought up was if you were to just flood old maps in as well. And I wonder if some old maps will make it into that pack.
We think the balance of those two things is a really great time to sort of spin away from other parts of the game and get
Chaos
the full
modes are great.
spectrum of what Destiny has to offer.
I love Chaos
I'm
modes.
really excited about things like Fortress, and I'm really excited that Relic is going to provide an experience like this that is both, fun for people that are really good at slaying out and also has these sort of like high octane hijinks moments to it. But that's what we've already committed to. So let's talk about some new things that we think we need to do. One, we know we need to bring more of our modes into the core playlists. We've been putting a lot out in Labs. We've been putting a lot out in Iron Banner. And to be honest, there's a few obstacles to us putting these into our core playlists, be this VO or small bug level issues that we just were like, I don't know if we're ready. I think that has been blocking us from doing the right thing here. So we're going to take on some of that bug wake. We're going to take on a little bit of the jank, and we're going to say, no. This isn't worth us not putting into the mode. And so we're going to take some of these modes that we've been putting in Crucible Labs, that we've been putting in Iron Banner, and taking them and putting them into the core PvP experience that most of our players experience.
I know some people will look at that and be like, well, why can't you just put it out perfect? Like anytime you are making things, it is a struggle with resources. And if they feel like the mitigation of jank, as he says, is worthwhile to kind of leave in order to bring these new experiences, that's somewhat exciting to me. It also is a very high wire act.
We've also heard a lot about comp, and particularly about the way that we reward points in comp. So we want to take a new approach to the way that we're balancing points in comp. Right now, we think it's just weighted too much on your personal MMR versus the people you're playing against. And when you win or when you lose a game, it can be really unpredictable how many points you're getting. We're going to go to a simpler system where winning or losing just matters more.
This will be huge for people that play comp. That has been a consistent criticism of the comp game mode, and I'm glad that they're listening to it. Simplifying systems is always better than trying to draw them out into some long, weird thing. Sometimes happens when you're in an early design of a system. I kind of really enjoy what they did with Gambit, even though there's no mention of Gambit in this or within the past couple of weeks since the state of the game. But I think that is a good simplified version of what that thing was.
Finally, we want to get great modes like Countdown Rush into competitive and get modes that people are less excited about, like Rift, out of the rotation, making that competitive experience more about the game modes that our players enjoy.
Rift is more of a chaos mode anyway, so I can see why that in a competitive setting is no bueno.
Okay, so we've talked map strategy, we've talked modes. I want to talk one other effort we want to do here. We're going to bolster what we call a PvP strike team.
This is great. Any kind of focus like this on a specific side of the game, like the thing that they didn't say this in the state of the game, and it felt like they were cutting out half of their audience, which didn't seem like a smart business move. This pass right here, this entire section that they're talking about, points to taking care of PvP long term, which is much needed for the game, because Destiny isn't just a PvE game. It would be fairly dull if it were.
Throughout Destiny development, we've built strike teams for efforts before. This has probably been sort of invisible to you all in the audience, but in moments like in between Curse of Osiris and Warmind, we built a strike team for Destiny investment. This team was sort of built around, hey, how can we make it more rewarding and more enjoyable to just get stuff in Destiny 2?
They've also done this toward the end of life in Destiny 1, around the Age of Triumph. They specifically had a team that was built for those experiences.
This team built stuff very quickly, like what would eventually become the masterworking system. They also went through, knocked out a whole bunch of bugs, knocked out a whole bunch of quality life issues. We're going to take the same effort and we're going to build a PvP strike team around the same principle, but have it focused on the Crucible.
Good.
It's going to be led by PvP developers, and it has a really interesting playbook for how this works.
That was a point of contention from the state of the game, is that there was a portion that said, hey, in order to give you PvP stuff, we had to pull people from PvE in order to do this. So I'm glad that he made it very clear there that it's like, hey, this is going to be PvP devs. This is what they're going to be focusing on.
First, the team decides what they want to do. They as a team get together, say, hey, these are the changes we want to make. Those changes go through me. They go through our systems CD. And then when we say, yep, those are great changes, they immediately get communicated with you all in the community, right? So this will be going out in a TWID, going out in a Twitter post, or going out on Reddit, right? Just sort of some immediate blast, like, hey, these are the changes coming. And those changes get communicated even before they start getting implemented. And then we start getting implemented. We found this formula is a really successful way for us to be able to push through changes quickly into the community. And I think one of the most exciting parts about these strike teams is we build them based off of community feedback. So these strike teams are built from the ground up to look at, hey, what are the pain points that are hitting our community the most? And so all this list is going to be built and burned down from, hey, these are the big issues the PvP community is looking at in Destiny.
If this is consistent, this will be so great for that side of the game.
All right, I think that's the end of the PvP part of our agenda. If I'm looking at our notes here, I think we're now going to talk about armor. It's probably been a while since we talked about this part about armor, but we might have talked about it before. I want to start with just talking about armor visual categories in Destiny. So at the top, we've got what we call aspirational armor. This is stuff like raids, trials, dungeons. We want the armor that comes from these activities to be flashy, or to like really talk about the core of what that experience is. It's really important that when players earn these armors, they feel proud, they want to wear them, they want to show them off in the tower.
The Ron armor was sick. Hands down, sick.
We've got silver, right? This is armor that you can buy for the store for silver. It's important for us that this feels like it's sort of breaking the mold of what you could expect in a Destiny game. It's our place to experiment with stuff that's a little bit fourth wall breaky. And importantly, we want anyone that spends silver on armor to feel like, hey, it was worth it, right? Like I got my money's worth when I spent this armor. It was cool.
There have been so many conversations about Eververse over the past couple of years. It seems like more concentrated within the last few months, what with Aztec Cross's video, and then all the reaction videos that came after that. But this is a good delineation here. I don't know if he intended to put silver at the second, and I don't know if that's a queue of priority for their design team. And then this third tier that he talks about,
I called narrative armor.
Narrative armor.
This is the stuff that you'll see in any sort of our marketing trailers. This is the stuff that you earn in the season pass. It's the stuff that you earn in the post game of a campaign. And it's really about driving home what that specific moment in time was. So in season 21, it's deep sea diver armor, right? In Witch Queen, it's sort of like weird paranormal detective armor.
The Witch Queen armor.
You'll see what it is in the final shape here in a week or so. But that armor for us is really about like driving home this clear, consistent fantasy of like, oh yeah, I was there. I remember that time in Destiny.
Here he's going to talk about blue armor, which I think some of the blue armor in the game is better than a lot of the narrative stuff. But that's like, you know, everybody enjoys their own flavor of ice cream.
Finally, we've got rituals and blues. And this space has always sort of been about that core Guardian fantasy. What does the Guardian look like that you would imagine sort of the stereotypical everyday Guardian, or the Guardian that you see on the front line? Maybe tragically a Guardian that tried to go into the portal of the Traveler and then gets cut up into a million pieces. This is that spot. And we need a lot of armor here to sort of flesh out those fantasies. Mm-hmm. Now, sometime in the middle of last year, we sort of reevaluated our priorities on armor. And we said, hey, we need to be spending more on the armors that people care the most about, the people that earn, that spend, that do all this to this so they can sort of get these armors in the game. So this is like our PvP stuff in trials, our aspirational stuff in raids and dungeons, our narrative stuff. We thought we weren't consistently hitting the bar enough in those looks. And I think that since that initiative, we've been really successful in this. We've put out great stuff in terms of like cowboy armor for Spire. We've put out awesome stuff in the Root of Nightmares raid, and we've put out a bunch of awesome armor sets for sort of a deep sea fantasy last season and Season of the Deep. Now, what we failed to do when we reprioritized, hey, where are our resources going, is communicate this to you. So we knew that when we made this change, we weren't going to be able to make a ritual armor set every single year. And we thought, okay, well, that's fine. We have a lot that fits this sort of base Guardian fantasy. But we should have communicated that out to you.
Yes.
And so, one, I'd like to say, this is not a thing that we're never going to invest in. We're investing in it again in the final shape. There's going to be a whole nother ritual suite of armor. And we're excited to sort of replenish that base Guardian fantasy. But just because we're doing that in the final shape year, that doesn't mean that we communicated this soon enough. So also for this year, we want to take an armor set that we were going to put in the Eververse, and we're saying, no. We should have communicated this earlier. It's really important that our fans can trust us. Let's take this armor set that we were going to use in Season 22 for the Eververse set, and let's say, no, it's going to be free, and we're going to put it as ritual rewards. So next season, before the end of the season, you should see a brand new armor set that you can earn through playing Strikes, Crucible, Gambit as like a ritual reward for doing this, a brand new armor look. Again, we're confident in our strategy going forward. We believe this is the right priority going forward, but also it's our responsibility to communicate this stuff sooner. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by all the fans.
Yes, 100%. I like this. This is a good make good. I'm hopeful that armor just isn't available for Season 22 and that it stretches out into Season 23 as well. Like most ritual armor would be. But this is a good make good. This is like, hey, we messed up in not telling you about our goals for ritual armor. We screwed up. Pobody's nerfed. We're going to give you some silver armor as a make good. That's a good call. He talks about communication here. Over in this next section. This has already been, I think, some of the best communication that Bungie has put out in the last year. I would like to see more of this, please. I think most of the community would as well. However, understandable that some folks in the community, with a community as large as ours is, aren't looking to have good faith conversations about the game, the developers, or even their well-being. So,
all right, I think that's armor. Let's talk about comms. Okay, we've talked a lot about how the development team is very busy, and I think that although we really want to be focused on delivering great content to y'all and making sure that's our top priority, that doesn't mean our communications have to suffer. And so the first thing, we want to be talking to y'all more. But talking to y'all more, our number one priority, we have to keep our community members and our community leaders safe from the Bungie side. I don't want anyone that signs up to come work at Bungie and to talk to y'all about the game to have to worry about their personal safety.
Nobody should have to worry about their personal safety at work. No one. Hands down, nobody. Especially, like, that is just a hands down fact. You should feel safe at the place where you go to work. There are going to be people in the comments for this post who do not understand that fact.
So we're going to keep using our branded accounts.
Yes.
You'll see these on Twitter and you'll see these on Reddit, right?
That was a smart move to have branded accounts to take it off of the personality of the community managers, especially in the wake of everything that happened with DMG. But I think that's smart on their end. Everybody knows who the community managers are, but having a singular place to focus feedback is good for Bungie. And I think in the long run is better for the community as well, because it's a more concentrated place for people to get that information.
And we want to be using those accounts with more personality, going and talking to y'all more. The other thing is me. I play the game a bunch. And right now, I don't have a bunch of time to be writing sort of big, long blog posts like you would assume.
Yeah, he's got a game to direct.
When Season 22 rolls around again, I'm going to be in the game a lot. I'm going to be playing a lot. So what we want to do is commit to a few times next season and the season after. I'm just going to stream me playing the game. And you'll be able to come and talk to me. And it's not going to be reveal packed, but it is a great time to just be like, hey, check in with Joe. These are the things that we're feeling. Get his opinions on them. And hopefully, if I can get and play with some of our like elite players, me learn a bit more of the game. I learn a ton from playing with you all in the community about different builds that are exciting and different ways to roll. So I want to commit, get out there, play some PvP, learn from some experts, and play alongside all of you next season.
So this is huge. I always love Dev Insight videos. I don't know about you guys. And Dev Insight streams in particular, there's just something that, as a live streamer, there's something about live streaming where there's the fly by the seat of your pants nature of it that is a little high wiry, but leads to some interesting interactions and interesting information being pushed through. So all for this, all for like the communication from Joe Groff on this. I wonder, I don't know, like if he's going to be streaming on Twitch or if he's going to be streaming on YouTube. I hope he pushes that information out so that people can turn on notifications when he does go live for those. I don't know how many people remember this, but back in the day, Bungie actually had a podcast way before Destiny. Like I want to say like a few months before Destiny 2. It was kind of like in the lead up. It was a little off the cuff. It was at times not entirely on topic, and it was 100% welcome. And I think it humanized the people who did it. As somebody who does a podcast and is an avid fan of podcasts, I feel like this is great.
All right. The only thing that I have left here is close. So I think that means my rambling on here today is over. Thanks so much for listening to this, for watching this. Really excited to see a bunch of y'all next week at the reveal. Bye.
Good communication all the way throughout. I think he comes off as very personable. I think the points communicated were good make goods and good clarifications for things that the community went crazy about over the last couple weeks. I think I also said this in the tier episode that we did for Destiny Digest, where I think they have like some sort of marketing trajectory where it's like 2 weeks out we rip off the band-aid and then we kick up the hype machine again like a week out when those negative conversations have kind of died down. And so there's a part of me there's a part of my little conspiracy theory mind that has Charlie Day pointing to like a board with red thread all over it. There's a part of my mind that's like, well, they kind of knew what they were doing. But I'm very grateful for this experience and for this communication specifically from Joe. This kind of conversation from Joe will be pushed far and wide. I know that the State of the Game article pushed even past the Destiny 2 community. I started seeing it in other gaming podcast material out on my YouTube feed. So very hopeful that this is actually helpful. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Things I want to know in the future, what the change to the Destiny 2 live service means. I think that's the biggest one for me. That should be clarified. We should know more about that. And we'll get that soon. We'll get that next week. So looking forward to that. And if you're around on the 22nd, we will be watching as a group with a bunch of different content creators like Bonafide Hero, Pigeon, Tiddly, Ill Physics, D Flawless, just a who's who of who's to watch that. So twitch.tv/Danfinity if you want to watch that. And I hope you find what you're grinding for.